America. Our idea of freedom in the United States of America is a deeply held one and believed as faith. You know America, a nation that's a beacon of liberty and justice, shining a light on the downtrodden and hopeless, historically welcoming to all peoples everywhere on the planet who want to immigrate to its shores to share in the broad prosperity of the richest, most powerful empire in the history of the world. This idea of America was a widely held conviction, not just here, but everywhere in the world, with these convictions sometimes bending, as during the Civil War of the 1860s and the domestic turbulence of the 1960s and 70s, and these same convictions never actually breaking. But in 2016, something seemed to break in the American psyche, and since the presidential election that year, the country seemed torn up over our own current political crises, brought on by tribalism, partisanship, and a news media that profits from permanent crisis. That's all well known. That's the story of America that we share, the story of our country that we tell ourselves. But what about the next part, the part that's unknown? What comes next? The ever-evolving present and the future. What's the story that we tell ourselves about that America, that future? What do Americans think about the future? Do we even agree about that shared past? What does the average American think about the future? Do they think about the future at all? And is the election of Donald Trump as major an issue among everyday Americans as the media makes it out to be? Determined to find out, I set out with a crew, a camera, and some questions across the lower 48 states of the good old US of A. Starting a few days after the presidential election in November of 2016, I had one question that I thought would get people talking, and that was to just tell me your feelings on the 2016 presidential election season. Turns out, Americans of all types feel very similarly about this history-making event.
It's a gamut of feelings, from being disappointed, from being saddened, I'm sure I had some positive feelings during that time, but overall it was, I think, just more a feeling of just sad and disappointed that I just kept thinking, this doesn't represent who America really is. You know, have we really come to this? All the bickering and fighting and mudslinging, and then to end up with the two candidates we did. It's like, really? Of all the wonderful Americans, we've got a philanderer and a felon.
In all honesty, I did not like either candidate. I truly did not feel like we had a selection, but it was more important to vote than not vote. So I voted, and I think that as a result of that, I think that I'm pleased with what's happened with President Trump. I think he's done more, and he's trying to follow his campaign promises to the best he can. I don't agree with the media hammering daily his family, his cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever. I think it's ridiculous, and I think that we should give, because he was elected, that we should give him the respect of his election.
I believe Donald Trump. I'll stand behind him. I really do. I think he's going to clean a lot of things up. And just look at how he started. He may end up taking us to war. If he doesn't, then there's sales throughout the United States that people don't even know about. I firmly believe that. Yes, I'm a gun owner. Proud to be a gun owner.
I didn't really want to vote for Trump. And I don't like Hillary Clinton at all, not even a little bit. So it was a lesser of two evils. I voted for Trump. And I'm not quite sure. I think that if he kept his mouth shut a little bit, it would be better. I think he's arrogant. And he makes stupid statements. But He knows finances, and I'm just hoping that we can get this turmoil over with between everybody.
At the end of the day, I voted the way I did for Donald Trump because he's a businessman. I felt like he could drive economics in this country up. We saw it happen immediately after he was elected. We saw the stock market start rising. As a business owner and participant in the business marketplace, I see businesses that 2 years ago were dying are starting to thrive again. People are spending money. The economic machine is moving. He's a man with shortcomings. Shortcomings. He is at times an idiot. My biggest problem with society as a whole is that social media and the internet has given people a voice that don't need a public voice.
I felt very little more than disgust for the whole process, this trip around. Neither candidate was fit for the office, in my opinion. I have pretty high standards for who I think should run the country, you know, and I didn't think that Donald Trump was a person at all, like not even remotely. I knew too much about Hillary Clinton, unfortunately, so you know, I didn't think there was a good candidate, so it was hard for me to get a good feeling for the whole election from the get-go. And the process throughout most elections is just terrible, with each candidate beating each other up, you know, and all the media circus. But this time, because I had such a bad feeling for the whole thing and for the candidates in general, I think it made me feel worse for it than usual.
I started listening to Trump, and he was saying on TV, and I told my husband, I said, you know, I think I like him. I like what he stands for. It's been a long time since I felt anybody's been honest and straightforward about what is going on in the world. I had no idea, I never did, about Syrian cities and all these foreigners coming in and no venting. It's like, and they were for just open borders. And I said, that worries me, because we just can't let anybody in there. Forgot about 9/11, what happened, and those people were in here. And I just seen on Facebook today, and then and it was last night, about there was 18 people, and they were missionaries, and they're due to be killed today because they're missionaries from Islam or something over there. And I said, that's terrible. They didn't do nothing to nobody but try to talk about God, and they turned it around and made them evil. It's like, and these people are crazy. It's like we got to vent. We got to look after our country. That's what I feel. And the first time in my life when I started looking at the election, I realized that I just can't sit back. I got to try to do something, get it out, whatever I can do. I never cared before, but the more I seen what the Democrats were talking about, it upset me. It's like, you know, if anybody else would run, it'd be great, but I don't like what I'm hearing.
I feel like we should have done better with who we chose as our primary candidates. And it kind of seems like since last year, America's kind of falling apart.
I wasn't paying too much attention to politics, actually, at all. I wasn't digging into it, I guess. So it seemed like bad things were happening, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then watching the election unfold, and up until then, I don't know what to say. I had a miscarriage. That's when I had a miscarriage, so it was so in my face, I didn't really have a choice. It was all I heard about, and it was very strong, like very opinionated to the degree I've never experienced before from any other election.
Before I say anything else, I will have to say that, to be straight up honest, I did not vote. Some will say that I don't have the right to criticize, you know, the election that happened, and some could be right, you know, because I didn't vote. I didn't vote because I was protesting anything. It's just like I didn't have time to, and I didn't see the point, in my opinion. Electoral college invalidates a popular vote. But I don't know. I think the country got taken. I can tell you right now, it's not gonna. I don't know. I don't think this country's ready for what's happening. I don't think they understand what's happening. I think some people think that things are the way they used to be. Get out there and vote for your guy. And, oh, well, that's not our guy, but he's the president anyway. So support him. Even though, you know, come on. There's an 800-pound elephant, gorilla in the room, whatever you want to call it. Stuff it, right? Stuff it. The whole thing was like a maneuver in propaganda. Just like the media played everyone and did it brilliantly.
It was almost like a story was playing out, like something was happening that we weren't really sure was what was actually going on, if it was real or not. Like, I couldn't tell if it was, like, how factual everything was. It seemed very, I don't know, like staged almost, like a movie scene. And maybe I just wanted to believe it was a movie, but it was that perception of not necessarily feeling how, if it was real, or especially after we had come from something that seemed a lot more unifying as a country in whole. It seemed like something that was really starting to tear the entire country apart.
It didn't feel real. It really didn't. It felt like it was something out of a movie. Yeah. And then when I found out who was all the parties running and saw that, I was hoping for Bernie Sanders, man, but Hillary too, you know. I kind of like her too. But when I found out that Trump was running, I was like, oh, this is fixed. I already know how it was going to end. I kind of had that feeling, the way America was going with everything. But I just still can't believe it. I don't believe it. Like I said, I think I'm in some sort of ultimate timeline.
It was a couple months where it got crazier and crazier, and we all couldn't imagine what was happening in front of us, right? And I remember thinking, okay, one of these people has to talk back to him or put up a fight or something, and that never happened. And then, of course, the debates were laughable, and I felt like everybody should have seen him and as the kind of bully that he is.
It was a little crazy. I was a Sanders supporter during the election, and then, you know, when he dropped out, we'll say, you know, it was a little bit crazy watching Trump rise from a kind of a joke candidate to the leading candidate of the Republican Party, and then, you know, eventually winning out over Clinton. It was kind of a wild ride.
Just a shit show, like the worst reality TV we've ever had. It was unbelievable basically the entire time it was happening. I was one of those denial people who just didn't think it was possible. And then turns out it was, which is not fun. Just bad all around.
Can't say I didn't see this coming. Yeah. I mean, I liked Bernie personally. But hey, at least he's a New Yorker. At least he isn't a carpetbagger like that chick.
I don't really care, but nobody really likes Trump. My mom doesn't like him. And I haven't really heard anything good about him.
If intuitively I had to attach or associate one word to it, I'd say farce. That's the word in the 5 letters, farce. I wouldn't even go as far as to say farcical, but definitely farce is what comes to mind with the election.
Honestly, I think the presidential election really showed the American people what a farce our political system is.
Yeah, when I first heard that Donald Trump was running for president, I thought it was a joke. I was just like, oh, whatever, no way. That's crazy.
I thought it was a really sad joke. Like the kind of joke where you don't really laugh, but it's still so bizarre that you have to find some humor in it. I was one of probably millions of people who never honestly believed that Trump would win.
since I wasn't a big political follower, it was just a humorous thing that Trump was even running from the beginning. If we go back to the year before 2015 when he started running, it's just like, this is a joke. This is certainly a joke on the Republican side. It seemed like a bunch of knuckleheads that were even running against him, and it wasn't going to go anywhere. And as 2016 rolled on, it got a little bit more serious in the back of my mind, even though it was still a big joke, all the way up until the actual election. I really never thought he'd win. And I thought Hillary had the best chance, but I was all for Hillary all along.
As far as Trump goes, it's interesting that when he announced, because there was a lot of jokes before that, and not just 6 months before that, but years before that he would run one day and be the president. I mean, people rap about it, it's in some literature. So, and I always thought it was a joke. So when the announcement came, I still thought it was a joke. I thought there's no way that this man is really running for the presidency. There's just no way. And the entire campaign, I thought it was a joke. I did not think it was real. And all of the stuff that has come out, the negative stuff about the things he said or done, were points that made me feel like this is a joke.
I was really disappointed, to be honest. Patrick woke me up after the election was over and told me that Trump won, and I thought he was joking. Like, I thought he was being mean and playing a prank on me. When he got nominated, I was like, this can't be real. Like, there's no way. This is not happening. There's no way he's going to win, and then he won. And it was no good.
My first impression was when Trump got into the race. Was I remembered watching maybe 10 minutes of The Intern when he did that reality TV program.
Yeah.
And I saw how he put the people down and seemed to enjoy it so much. And I said to myself, this is not good. And as we went through the campaign, I heard him degrading people over and over again, especially Hillary. And my mother taught me not to speak ill of other people, especially out loud, especially not in front of a bunch of people. And that was what I heard him doing, and it was very upsetting, very discouraging.
Well, just to clarify, before he even chose to toss his orange scalp into the ring, I never cared for him. I thought he was a sham, a fake. He never made any money on his own. He's lived off his family's money his entire life. So that's all lies. He decides to run for president because, I don't know, I guess it's to feed his ego. And when he won it, I knew in the back of my mind there was a chance he would. But when he did, I kind of lost faith in humanity, more or less. Because I couldn't believe that somebody of that moral ineptitude could actually get into a public office like that.
I've always been aware of Donald Trump as a personality. I'm a junkie of information, and so I had some familiarity with all 16 Republican candidates, but I never thought Donald Trump was anything other than what he proves to be. And I lost a great deal of money because I was so convinced. My bet was 40% of the American people wouldn't vote for him, no more than 40%. And several people who were more cynical than I won that bet. And they will not make a bet today, and I keep coming up with creative bets, and I'm even ready to give long odds, but somehow they don't want to take my bets now. That's okay.
I was really surprised, Trump got the nomination, that so many people just wanted a really drastic change, and to go with someone who was not political throughout his career. It was just interesting to me that he got the nomination and how it went with that and how divided it made the country, but kind of united people to become more involved in politics.
So I don't think that it fully set in what the election results meant until after the election. I was pretty optimistic about where things were headed. I was listening to the news a lot. I used to listen to NPR, their political podcast, every morning. And I really didn't see, I just didn't see it coming, I'll be honest. And when we were there, we were watching election night on the TV, and then when the results started coming in, it was shocking. My husband's family is from Michigan, and I remember that after the election, he chastised them because they didn't vote, and it was just like a place where every vote counts, and I just didn't really think too much about, I don't know, I think I became more politically aware afterwards, not to say that I wasn't following the news, but just the political environment.
Let's see, operative word I guess is surprise. A lot of surprise even prior to the actual decision. Just the way the race was won or run by all the candidates. Very surprised about the level of just acrimony and the hard hitting and the, we're not talking issues, we're talking personalities. And it was kind of, for me, a very disappointing running, just the running of the race. I was not terribly proud to be to witness that, to have that in this country.
As far as this election goes, I voted for Hillary Clinton because she was endorsed by Foreign Affairs magazine and by all 5 ex-living presidents and many major newspapers. I just thought that she had the experience and the outlook, and her website outlined her programs, and I agreed with those programs. And I really don't understand what happened. I was completely disappointed by the Republican platform, by their disarray, by the people that were calling each other names seemed very uncivil to me, and not the way I thought that the discourse was uncomfortable for me. The way people were calling each other names and not dwelling on personalities rather than issues was extremely disappointing to me, and I was extremely disappointed in the result of this election.
Up until the election, I was very hopeful. I thought for the first time I was going to see the first woman president. I'm in a predominantly male industry, and I thought for the first time ever I was going to see the thoughtful, careful, educated woman beat the loud guy, and so when she didn't, I was crushed. I could feel it here, It was very challenging. And not just that, but then the uproar directly after, where a lot of people felt motivated, like they were validated to spread hatred and spread ideas about how white men had somehow been, unrepresented until then. So that was it was very disappointing. I guess that would be the main word, disappointing.
In regard to my understanding of it, I explained to my wife in October 2016. And this is not to disparage the media, but I said and suggested to her, if the media controls the narrative, the current president will win. And I was not alluding to the media's part willing part in his winning. You know, if you present a face, a vision, a video of a person and hear the same thing over and over, regardless of the demographics, someone is going to be convinced that that person is legitimate. A salesperson who has very much knowledge of his or her product or service can convince some segment of the population to believe that that is the best thing for them, even when they don't need it. The media afforded the president the opportunity for exposure. And I mean by that, constant exposure. Every time you turn on the TV set, in most cases, they weren't following his opponent. They were demonstrating where he was. And it wasn't about substance. It was more like evolving to the point of name calling. And it was disappointing, quite honestly. I'm talking about the way it materialized. And it seems like our country has pretty much acquiesced to this reality show mentality, which is what I see in the media.
So, the people have spoken, and it seems as if no one is happy with the way our political system handled the 2016 presidential election. From seemingly everyone in every corner of the country, the process itself was agreed to be the worst. But what about what's happened since the election? What kind of picture do Americans paint of a current America? Has there really been any change?
It's funny how watching other people's reactions, and it's just this whole thing is just rocking their world, and to me it's like, all right, well, I'll admit I was surprised, but ultimately it doesn't make any difference, and I still have to get my black ass up, I have to take my black ass to work. The cops are still going to follow me the same way. I still have bills to pay. I still have other things I have to do. And it's like Trump is as much of an establishment, status quo person as most of the rest of them are anyways. It really doesn't make that much of a difference.
I'm so desensitized now. Yeah, the first few months I was like, there's a disaster's coming. There's going to be a disaster here soon. So I watched every day. I got the updates on my phone. Since then, the last 8 or so months, I've turned off the updates on my phone because the stuff that Yahoo News and all that thought that I needed to know, I didn't need to know, in my opinion. And it's all just become a laughing stock. I mean, I've listened as he said things in the beginning that he's doing 180 from now. It just doesn't make sense to me. I can't personally put it all together in my head.
I can't say that there's one thing that I've actually been affected by. I gotta think a little bit about that, but I just keep doing what I'm doing. All this, so many things have happened. But I can't think of actually how any of those things have affected my day-to-day living.
Well, I'm to the point now where I almost don't want to watch the news at night because I know they're going to show something that President Trump is saying, and he just seems so unpresidential.
It's one of the few times in a long time that I when people are talking about getting rid of a president, that it gets me a little excited. That I'm like, wow, maybe we could get rid of this and jack off. Because for no other reason, we don't need a president on Twitter. Forgive me, but that's not presidential in my opinion. So for no other reason, get his ass off Twitter.
Since the election, it's just been kind of like a non-stop roller coaster ride. The craziness that's come about every couple of days. It's kind of hard to follow everything. But yeah, it's a little bit of a circus going on every day. Something new with the Russian scandal and the firing of the FBI agents, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's just hard to pin down exactly where things are going next. You never know.
I feel affected completely, man. Especially in the income bracket that I'm in, I feel totally affected by it. And I hate it. I don't like it for some reason, because I've never, with any other presidency, I've never felt like really affected by anything, or I was either too young to be affected by it or whatever. But with this one, like on some of the shit that's happened since then, I've felt some of the effects of it. And it's made me realize that I need to be more involved in politics and listen more to like what's actually going on, instead of blocking it out loud. Like, I don't want to listen to this. I don't want to do this. I kind of grew up in a safe area of time. You know, there was stuff going on, but nothing really this crazy.
I think I frame it in the sense of just my own lived experience, which is that I, of course, I'm 30 years old. I grew up in the 90s. I remember those days, in addition to the typical idyllic childhood experience, which in my case I had a pretty good childhood. In addition to all that and all that haziness, I just had the sense that there was a great hope for the future. I think in the 90s there was a great sense of positivity about the future, particularly after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was a sense of American dominance, America number one, rah, rah, rah. Just so much energy and enthusiasm. And you had things like the advent of the internet and the .com boom, and just the sense of, I think, possibility surrounding that as well. There's just so much happening. And then, of course, you have things like September 11th, and then 2 wars to follow, the 2008 financial crisis, the Great Recession, and it seemed like there was just a general sense of souring in terms of hope for the future. In the 21st century, it seems like there's just so much anxiety, so much more anxiety.
I think the generation today, it's understanding that because the way we're reacting towards being selfish and private and caring about ourselves and separating from community, becoming more of a private individual, we are understanding that we have to work more towards building other forms of community in today's world. How do we do that? Well, you see more and more nonprofit organizations developing. You see more people donating to charities. You see more of a social justice that develops all over the world through nonprofit. Because I think that's going to be the way we're going to be able to stand for values, since a lot of the things that we created as, for instance, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, benefits, those, they want to dismantle those.
I think that the next generation is screwed right now if things don't turn around, because they are being raised by a bunch of addicts and a lot of people who just are ambivalent to it, which is very sad in my opinion. I don't know. I can't picture what it's going to be like if things don't turn around. Like, in my opinion, that's the only logical thing that's going to happen, is like something needs to change, and I don't know. If it doesn't change, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Like, we're already so divided that I can't imagine it getting much worse, and that scares me.
Yeah, all I can think of is like, well, this is our generation's deal. We need to all be prepared to fight and to take care of each other. I don't see any sort of positive agendas being laid out. It's not really in a realist sort of world. I mean, realistically, the facts are global warming's happening.
We can argue if we cause it or whatever, but it's happening and it's fast and it's faster than it's ever been. You know, our resources, you know, we're misusing them. We're just not being smart in the way that we're living on this earth. And when you have someone who's like, none of that matters and it's not true, I mean, that's a factual thing. I don't know that it's pessimistic or if it's an optimistic thing, but it's an actual factual thing.
I'm just mainly worried about global warming. It's a scary thought of what could happen, but I just hope we all make it, honestly. I hope things won't change too much in a negative way.
I perceive that there'll be some turmoil, conflict, and conflict can be good if it's done with an attitude of civility and an understanding that all of us have an opinion. But in the interest of the common good, and that is what's best for all Americans, I believe that the tension produced by the deliberation can actually result in some good outcomes.
We could be, looking at the undoing of, civil rights movement, the women's liberation movement. There are so many ways that we can regress as a society, and life can get a lot worse for the people who it's already pretty bad for. And we could go into a state of war. I think that we don't have to let that happen. And I think what I've seen come, post-election, first of all, I feel like everyone I know who is involved in any kind of activism or organizing, and then a whole lot of people who I know who aren't, who either are glad someone else is doing it, or maybe someday I'll do it, or I'm so busy and I'm so glad, that other people are out doing it, or they write checks to nonprofits. But I've seen a lot of people go, oh my God, what are we going to do? How do we plug in? And I've seen a lot of conversation about how we are going to stand up for and protect folks who are going to be at most risk of a Donald Trump presidency, and also Donald Trump followers who feel like their time has come and now they can be, openly awful.
I think that the one silver lining out of all of this, if you can find a silver lining, is that it's motivated people to actually act, to get angry, to be upset, to use that sort of energy and channel into something. I think after the first half year, when every time he would do something awful, every time something terrible would happen, the belief was, oh, this will be the thing that stops him. This will be the thing where everyone realizes they made a terrible mistake and they're going to finally kick him out of office. And then after each of those events and nothing happened, people started realizing that just pointing out his awful behavior isn't going to change anything. The fact is that while he's kind of an idiot and some would say sort of evil, he's useful for people on the right, for people that want to use that idiocy to sort of kind of steamroll their agenda through, which they haven't been able to do, with the last few administrations as much as they would have liked to. So the fact is that no matter how horrible he is, his party, the folks that are benefiting from him being in office, are not going to do anything about it.
One of the good things that's happened is Trump is such a misogynist that it's caused America to question misogyny and gender inequality as a whole. His horrible behavior has made people question society, which is a good thing. It's also terrible. Trump's reputation is so bad for America. It's going to take us years to recover from the damage he's done.
It's kind of nice when you have like the worst enemy you could possibly have. It really gets people going. But I worry, I feel like people are starting to get a little burned out. And it's hard when you have someone like Donald Trump who isn't playing by any rules, just says whatever he wants all the time, and the target is constantly shifting, and so it feels a lot of times like you're fighting shadows. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does.
And so it's exhausting, and don't know. Is there worry that there's going to be a backlash to the backlash of Trump?
I think what's happening now is just bringing everybody a chance to formulate their own opinions on what's been in place for a long time, and maybe what people have access to, and then changing the views of what can really happen in the future. So, like, the fact that so many people collectively feel is detrimental to the country is in power. It also allows people to come together to choose other ways to empower themselves and to make hopefully a better future, right? So that in the sense of things, history doesn't repeat itself.
We're sliding into this whole dystopian society of the haves and have-nots. And unless we have something close to the French Revolution, maybe not quite that bloody, it's just gonna get worse. I was hoping that by dipshit getting elected, that it would be like a collective thing, like we would all collectively have this one evil enemy that we would all come together and defeat. Like, but it didn't work. People, all we are is divided, squabbling amongst ourselves. They come up with the dumbest things for people to argue about.
I also think it's going to become very separated even more so between the elites, the haves, the oligarchy, I guess, if you will, and the have-nots. I think there'll be a lot more have-nots, and I think there'll be a lot less to share around on those lower levels in America and globally. And I think the ultra-rich and ultra-elite will just get more ultra-powerful, ultra-rich, and have more and more indulgences in their lifestyles, whatever they choose to be their lifestyles, because that's where the power has been placed right now, is in our money lust. Sad that that bottom part of that funnel is what supports and supplies all that energy to the top part, but it just happens to be the way I perceive that system to be.
I really feel like the degradation of the country is a hand. I mean, they're cutting the EPA, they're cutting everything, trying to make it, tax havens for the rich here in America, I guess. But my deal is, I didn't really think the government. I really don't think the government's too intrusive. I think that actually the people who say the government is too intrusive are the ones who seem to make the government more so. Simply because of their laws and whatever else. When they talk about the government being less intrusive, they're talking about the government being less intrusive for corporate America, not for people America, which it ought to be the other way around, because the corporations are the ones who are taking all of our resources and turning it into profit and making us sick with their chemical spills and their slave labor that they seem to be doing. This corporate colonialism that I think is going to continue.
The things that are happening are more incremental than I thought they'd be. But I feel like things are slowly, quietly being taken away bit by bit. And it's still scary. And I see things that happen to like the immigrants in this town or people who come here to work, and the crap they get, which I've never seen that outright expressed in public, in town. It's just scary. It's scary to see people hate that much. Sure, well, it's like when they first start saying fake news, fake news, fake news, and the rhetoric ramps up really gradually and really slowly. And 6 months later, it seems so normal. And then you sort of look around and you're like, wow, this is crazy. And then someone shoots up a newspaper station or something like that, a newspaper office. And it's like, oh, yeah. People are really listening to this and being affected by this. And the rhetoric is just getting louder and louder and louder, But for most people, it's actually turning into something normal to hear on an everyday basis.
Part of it is just, I think we're wired. We're hardwired to be attracted or to gravitate towards the discontent and the hate. And it's the slowing down to look at the accident on the highway, kind of human nature. We're fallible human beings, and that's what we gravitate towards. So I think that's part of maybe that disconnect. Although I have to admit, I think lately and since the election, even during the campaign, a lot of that's been highlighted. A lot of that has been celebrated in a way that it never has been before. A lot of this is seeming to become more accepted, that we attack and we criticize and we belittle, and it's becoming maybe more mainstream, but it's certainly becoming more publicized, and I believe that it's becoming a bit more the norm. It's certainly becoming more of the norm, or at least the apparent norm, just becoming more accepted. And I think that's, I could say it's a sad commentary.
Expectations are not a thing to judge the health of a nation. Okay, expectations are what gamblers do when they want to take a risk. They expect to get this kind of a return on a risk investment. That's business. Okay, expectations is business, not running a country. A country is not business. The problem is they've made it all business. They privatized everything. You know, getting rid of all the institutions that make it a fair deal for normal people that don't have wads of cash.
We knew this is what America is. Everybody's, programmed themselves to believe in all this liberty and justice for all. It's a business. It's about business. It's about process. It's about language. Look at what's happening with Wall Street. Look at what happened the night after Trump was elected.
For me, a lot of the trace problems come back to the Wall Street, the requirement to profit and grow every quarter is one of the biggest problems we face, because the requirement to continue to grow for Wall Street purposes is what makes all these cutthroat decisions seem so real, and that makes them happen. So that's just going to keep happening as capitalism run amok. And if you don't have some lids on it with the government, then capitalism is going to become bad. It's just it's oligarchy, basically. It's just a small number of people in power. Capitalism is great for growth, but it's not sustainable. Now we need to shift capitalism to a more sustainable model.
The corporatization of America will continue, probably at a higher rate than it has been going so far. There is the possibility of a large amount of discontent between Trump and industry leaders in green technology and Silicon Valley, who both value both of those aspects and admit to climate change. There will be opposition from an incredibly large section of the left in order to resist deportations. There will be room for a mass movement to grow and build itself up into a confident, well-oiled machine that could take care of Trump electorally or in any way they could, impeachment, what have you. It behooves us to try to elevate voices that are more marginalized in these fights, because the large segment of white America elected Trump, and a large segment of white America needs incredible racial and political education.
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I really do. And
what does worse mean, though?
I think that worse means that we're going to see, I don't want to say that we're going to see more infractions against, different groups, but I just see people are holed up with like-minded individuals, and we're just not having an open discourse with each other anymore.
It feels a lot to me like a sinking boat, it's not headed anywhere, and it's leaking like crazy. But I would say that a lot of people seem to be focusing a lot on Trump himself, and he is not the only person in the United States. If he were removed from office, which is a discussion that's going on right now, then I don't believe that all of these people who actually feel hatred would go away. I don't believe that they would stop feeling that way, you know, because there are more people than just Trump. Like if Pence took over, we're not really looking at a brighter future.
When Donald Trump was elected and it became clear to me that this was how it was, I was hoping that he would grow into the job and actually be a better person after he was elected, but I didn't see that being the case. I saw him still campaigning, and the tweeting disturbed me.
I don't think that he's supporting NATO as he should. Europe has been our allies for a very long time. He's making overtures to Russia. I am not opposed to better relationships with a large country that is one of the countries of the world. And I'm not opposed to better relations with China. But then all of a sudden these tariffs came into being. And it's like a game of chess. You move one piece and then the next person counters with a piece and the next person counters with a piece, and it's almost a game of chicken. I used to play chess and I kind of got tired of the strategy. Now, if Donald Trump has a strategy, that might be one thing to consider. I think he does some of this by the seat of his pants, or as they so politely say, the art of the deal. If he has the art of a deal, why would a man have to file bankruptcy a number of times? I am not sure that he makes good deals. And why would people that worked for him still say that he owes them money? And it seems that that can be proven.
This country has went nuts just within a few years. And I do put the blame, all of it, on Trump and the people that follow him. Because he is the one spouting off this racism. The MS-13 is going to take over the country. No, it's not. There is no little minority gang anywhere going to take over a country. They are a criminal element. Okay, fine. We have law enforcement. Why can't law enforcement do anything? I don't know. Unless there's money being poured into them, just like they did with the crack back in Los Angeles. And everybody says, oh, that never happened. Read your history. Go look up a book. It's one of those flat things and folds open, has pages. Nobody knows what those are anymore. The man that raised me was an old biker. He was the president of a club out of D.C. The best advice he ever gave me was, don't use a certain four-letter word in your language. And everybody automatically expects me to say fuck or something like that. No, it's hate. The actual pronunciation of that word, you can feel it. And what he said was, hate starts off as a little black pinpoint inside you. And the more you let it build and the more you use it, the bigger it gets, until it consumes your soul, and then you're nothing but an empty shell full of just blackness. There's nothing there anymore. This country's got to get over that. Get over the hate. You're not any different than I am. I'm not any different than you are. We're all the same creature. Except some are acting more like rabid animals now. And what do you do with a rabid animal? You can't cure it. And if they think it's going to stop if he gets rid of all the blacks, or he gets rid of all the Puerto Ricans, or he gets rid of this or that, no, it won't. Because as soon as they're done there, they'll turn on each other. You got blue eyes, I got brown eyes. My brown eyes are better than your blue eyes. That's how racism works. They're never going to be satisfied.
If you listen to the media, if you listen to the people who dominate the television and the internet, who tell you what's wrong and what's going on, we're in deep peril. It's horrible. It's the world's falling apart. It's everything is chaos. I mean, we're on the brink of war everywhere, and these people hate us, and these people hate us. But my friends that I do business with overseas every day, you know, they don't hate us. They kind of laugh at us. They don't kind of laugh at us. They do laugh at us. I get asked by, I do a lot of business with India. I do a lot of business with China. I have friends and business associates in the UK, and I always get the question, what are y'all doing? And I have to just say, you know, I really don't know. I really don't know. I think anybody who tries to answer that question is a fool.
And I proceeded to be rabidly, for a period of time, obnoxiously for a period of time, evangelical about the stupidity that had been done by electing this man, to the extent that one of my closest friends, who I'm going to visit in Atlanta in a couple of weeks, who to this moment is still a Trump supporter. I mean, he likes Sarah Palin too, so it's difficult. But he made me understand that his passion for his belief, whatever it was based on, was at least equivalent as a feeling to my passion for my belief. And since we're both human beings, and it was a feeling of his that he had honestly identified, it was contemptuous and loathsome for me to keep attacking. And notwithstanding the fact that as a lawyer and as a national champion debater in 1966, he said, so you can debate me into the fucking ground, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, but you can never talk to me like this again. And I really had never an intention of making my friend or any other person feel like that as a result of my political fervor over the election. But, you know, Maya Angelou said quite correctly, people don't remember what you say to them. They remember how you make them feel. And, you know, that's belaboring the obvious, but it's true.
The world's not falling apart, it's falling into place. So while, especially politically right now, and I think that's kind of generally what we're talking about, I think we're not in a good place. You know, lots of division. And it's been interesting to me to see how even good friends have gotten to the place where we just can't talk about politics. A lot of people you can talk about it with because they'll respect your view, but I think the divisiveness has led to many people who are just so set where they are in their position that they can't really discuss it openly. They're just that divided. And I think that's really sad that we have that right now.
It's so much mistrust out there. And the senior citizens too, it's like, you know, they're only getting $800, $1,200 a month. And that's not enough to live on. And then the government's taking their money. You know, they spent their money, and that's not right. That was in there for them in their old days. You know, that's not right. And I think there's damn people in there, the governor and the senators and all that, they make too much money. And I don't think they have a retirement that they couldn't live on what these people live on, and they worked their whole life. They bash the American people that work, the ordinary man. But the ones that are rich, you know, the rich and the poor get taken care of very well. They got it made, the poor. I mean, I thought it was kind of cute when Trump wanted to send them a care package instead of just giving them a bunch of money, and they didn't like that because he wouldn't have that money to dispose what they wanted. He said, I want to see them get back to work, and I do too.
Right now, everybody's against one another, blacks, whites, Hispanics, Mexicans, and I would like us to all kind of come to some kind of agreement where we can all live together peacefully. I know there are families that are with the Mexican thing going on. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that we have opened our borders so many times to every country in the world, and I think we need to take our country back a little bit.
I feel safer.
Yeah.
I feel safer. I don't think we're going to have a nuclear bomb anytime soon. I think that the Middle East is a problem and will continue to be a problem. I don't know what the solution is. I don't feel that pulling out of Iran and Iraq at the time that we did solved anything, because now the radical militants have taken over and killing people. So, with that being said, I think of how that all affects our youth. I think about that often, because whether we realize it or not, as parents, as adults, as grandparents, these children are on media. They see Facebook postings, they see the news on the media, they see it all. And what has social media done to them? Because we can't protect them. We can't protect them. Do they need to be protected? At a certain age, they need to be protected. But I think time will tell.
Like the immigration stuff going on, that I don't think that would happen, with another president in office. Trump has really strong feelings about people coming into the United States. There's a way to do things, and I'm not happy about the children being taken away from the mothers. It's not legal for them to come here, but why make the children suffer? It's just not right.
It's harder to predict things now, but I don't think that, despite how they look, I don't think things will change that much, because it's not like it's about Trump or Hillary or anyone who sits in that White House. It's not like the U.S. is going to stop supporting Israel, make education, and healthcare its focus as opposed to prison and military. It's not as if people are going to stop being racist, and misogyny and homophobia is going to go away. It's not like being racist will once again become taboo. It's not like we're going to get a living wage and proper health care. These will be, I guess some people can consider radical changes. These should be where we should be, because this is regular. Making $15-16 an hour, that's nothing. People should be making $20 at least. Being able to go to work or go about your business without being accosted by police or racist vigilantes, that should be expected,
Living through the past few years and judging by the media's portrayal of the nation, we are at each other's throats. A civil war is imminent. We are siloed in our partisan ideological camps, and we can't speak to each other and disagree about everything that's happening right now. But is that the case? Even though we've just seen there's more agreement than disagreement, obviously we can't agree about what the biggest issues facing Americans are, can we?
I do think that part of the oppression of all people in the United States is related to health-related issues, right? Whether it be basic health, not having a healthy diet, maybe living in inadequate conditions, but then there's the mental health status. So if we can educate people and help people establish better mental health and physical health, then they can focus on, contributing to the society.
I think the first thing would be to really take a look at our educational system might not be a cash drop, but see if there's a way for student debt to be restructured in some way. Not saying eradicate it. I know that there are states that are implementing community college programs for future generations so that these problems don't persist. I think that there's a way to make it so that, you know, if you have the right footing when you get out the door and you have your degree and you're not saddled with $200,000, $250,000 worth of debt, that's a start.
I think is the willingness to compromise, the lack of willingness to compromise and to accept other people's point of views. I certainly have a set of values, a set of morals that I think are correct, but to be able to understand that there's validity in this other guy's. Even they may be diametrically opposed to what I'm thinking, but somewhere there's some validity to that. And not that I have to agree or kind of acquiesce, but maybe to understand and to try to maybe have a little bit of empathy.
If we could just get rid of narcissism in general, just get rid of it. Just have it go away. In other words, the whole mentality of there is no you, there is only me. And nobody else counts. It's all me, only me. If we could just get rid of that mentality and people start actually thinking about, you know, other people past the end of their nose. You know, I guess the whole world needs to mature and grow up. Because most of what I've just described is like very young children behavior, childish behavior. And that's the problem is most people, all they care about is themselves. They don't care about anybody else. They don't care how they affect everybody else or what, you know, they just only care about themselves. If we could just get rid of that, get people thinking more along the lines of how can I help others? What are the consequences to my behaviors? How does this affect other people?
I feel like if there was a way that you could get rid of hypocrisy or outlaw hypocrisy, that would probably, you know, help right a lot of problems that not just the government has, but, you know, maybe that just people in general have. And it just seems like people always want to dictate to other people what to do and how to do it and what's right, but then they themselves don't follow that advice. And especially people who hold power, make laws and things like that, to be hypocritical is kind of a big issue.
The worst thing that ever happened to this country was NAFTA. Taking all the business out of this country, the factories. People weren't complaining about the factories. They were complaining about not getting paid enough because minimum wage has not been raised in how long? And it's not a decent living wage. But these companies wanted to make a larger profit, so I guess they got in Bill Clinton's head and he signed NAFTA and sent everything overseas. Bring the work back to the United States. Bring the work back to the people. You want to see a country perk up? Give them some jobs. Let them earn some money. You don't think that'll help the economy?
I guess it would have to be finances.
Yeah? What about our finances?
Well,
like our personal finances?
A lot of debt. I would like to see more industry back here in America to support our country. I keep on saying I want to take America back, meaning I think if we had more businesses back here like it was in the day, it would be much better for the economy.
But I think the biggest problem we have in America is our, how do I say this without offending? Immigration. I think there's a lot of people coming into America that should not be. And whether we have the procedures in place, evidently not. They're getting through the border. They're collecting money. They're doing crimes. More than not.
Really want to know if the immigration.
Yeah.
The immigration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't approve of it. You know, just they're coming over here illegally. But people make mistakes. They're human. They bleed the same blood that we bleed. You know, why lock them up and then take their children away? I don't agree with that.
So you mean like the taking the kids away from these people is a big
right? They were separating the moms and their babies.
So, I mean, no, keep going. I don't want to.
They should have been housed, you know, with the parents. In Trump building the wall, I just think that's a waste of money. They're going to get over that wall. They're going to get over it. They're going to get under it. Where there's a will, there's a way. I think that would be a waste of money.
No one can have more than 2 kids.
Why? Like, why do you think that's going to make everybody?
Because it will solve so many problems. It will solve the immigration problem, and it will solve the water problem, and it will solve the food problem. There'll be less people to feed, less populations that are, you know, exponentially growing.
I think we've got many problems facing us. The issue of diversity and how we get along, the issue of you know, equality and you know, the Me Too movement, the issue of how we get along with other countries, and maybe the solution is, I'm just spitballing here, is to go back to some of those values and respect for one another, whether it's someone from another country or someone, you know, of another gender, or people in the workplace. But that idea of respect, you know, we've got to bring that back. We've got to make sure it stays there.
I think the next big thing is that we are slowly killing God. You know, there's like 20%, something like that, of the planet is now, you know, non-theistic, pretty much. Not necessarily atheist, but a big chunk. That's 20% of the planet. That's a lot of people. It's biggest that it's ever been. And humans have, you know, we've had that story for a long, long time. And I think that this country is so rooted in its religious bullshit, its dogma, stigma. I would love to see every church and temple, okay? This is a non-denominational, okay? I don't care what it is. I want to see every temple and church and mosque turned into a theater. An actual theater with like a stage and shit. And then instead of everybody coming together on Sunday morning to just listen to somebody talk about some stuff for a couple of hours and they sing the same songs that they've sung a million times, okay, and they just kind of do a thing, no, they get to go see like a play or a show and actually learn something. Something different, something new, and the community puts on that show, and it's always different. And that way it isn't just one person talking to the sheeple. It's the community, which is what we really are. We're the strongest when we do it all together.
I think the biggest issue facing Americans right now is a normalization of racism and intolerance, which is affecting everybody.
The biggest issue facing this country, tolerance. There is a group of people, whether it be because of race, religion, their lifestyle, I'm not sure, but not everyone is tolerant of each other. And I'm not saying that tolerance should allow you to walk over somebody, to take control of somebody. Being tolerant of one another is loving yourself. That's a difficult thing that you have to learn to do. You have to learn to be comfortable in your own skin, to love yourself, to me, before you can love others. I don't know if some of these people have just never felt comfortable in their own skin. Maybe that's a point that folks would argue with me about, but I feel, because I had to become comfortable in my skin, that people need to learn to be comfortable and tolerant. You have to be tolerant of yourself.
On a lot of different levels. I'll take it back to race. If I offended somebody of a different race and they were able to take responsibility and say, that ain't right, you offended me, and then I took responsibility and said, I'm wrong, what can I do? But then in other terms, if the world's falling apart outside, it's my responsibility to go out there and do what I can. If my neighbor can't feed themselves, who's responsible? The world wants to be if we want the world to be a better place, we're all responsible.
I think the biggest issue right now is hate. Because hate is a big word. And it takes a lot of anger from people. I mean, you could be tolerant, you could disagree, but when you hate, typically you're gonna take action from that, because the feelings and the emotions and how your mind understands different things, it goes to another level of action. So I think hate is one thing that we need to overcome. It's not that we agree with everyone, it's not that but at least understanding people can be different, people can be who they are, and we can learn from those differences and we can accept. So that working towards avoiding hate and being more accepting is what's gonna work to me, because hate is a big issue today, and we've seen in the events and everywhere, mass shootings, immigrants crossing the border, others being in public places and being attacked for how they look and who they are, how they express, and it's happening all over the world. I think one of the reasons why I probably have been able to fitting more in here in this country as an immigrant is because I have seen more our similarities than our differences. Because I come from let's say I grew up in a big family, different backgrounds, and again I grew up being understanding that this is who we are, So then moving here and seeing myself, okay, I'm a minority, but how could I fit in as a minority? And understand that this is who I am and include myself. Was by understanding I got to find those similarities and introduce myself as who we are, who I am, I meant to say.
Well, the issue with division is the need for violence to be used as an instrument of power. And when we talk about violence, we can talk about poverty-related violence that is used systemically, or we could talk about physical violence, which is like hate speech and actual assaults and murders. And I think that that's a preference for Americans. I think that if you listen to the rhetoric that happened with Donald Trump's, while he was running for office and what's happened afterwards, I think that the only thing that we can look at is how do we stay safe. I don't believe that we can bridge those divides. I think that we need to use legislative policy, federal laws to indict and to investigate complaints that are going to continue to arise so that the systems and the courts can handle those. And I think that at the same time, communities need to start preparing and building and developing safety measures, safe walking, safe riding, safe houses for marginalized community members.
I was thinking about individualism, in thinking of other people's shoes, and it's this idea that we think that we get what we deserve in life, and we think that our experiences are true for everyone else. And it's kind of thing where people talk about prejudice and going to jobs, and I have been in situations where I have been treated very differently than a woman, and if I hadn't experienced that and seen the difference, like the clear difference in the way we were treated, it'd be easy for me to assume that, like, well, everyone just gets treated the way I do.
I would like to change the idea of what individualism and cooperative universalism means to humans. I would like them to maybe quit trying to be so independent in me, maybe try to use that as a form of movement in their lives to understand that they have a part. But I'd like them to see the greater value of all of us together collectively.
If we're moving towards a state of human evolution, then we need to recognize that those things are part of our animal brain, and they were necessary at a point, and if we are to evolve, then we need to grow past them. Still use them for what they are good for, but recognize when you're misusing them. Just like stereotypes, that's a shortcut in your brain. Your brain needs heuristics to be able to interpret the environment and the stimulus coming into it. Otherwise, it would probably like freak out and like you would die. But we rely too much on heuristics. They become these stereotypical ideas in our minds, and then we see somebody walking down the street who looks like a thug, and then you're scared of them, and then you see them do something, and then there's a confirmation bias. But fuck that. We need to be like, oh, wait, look what I just did. I shouldn't do that next time. I need to be more open-minded and just move on. You know? Don't get hung up on that stuff. I mean, I could get so preachy about this.
I think it would all boil down to people making an effort to love other people. Because, you know, we say love is patient, love is kind. So I originally thought kindness, to just have people be kind to each other. But then the reason you're kind to people is because you have love in your heart. And of course, being patient, being long-suffering with people. I think love would be my thing, because that would, if people really tried to love their God, their neighbor, themselves, I think it would take care of, you know, many things.
I think the overarching problem concerning us is our unwillingness to be open and honest with ourselves. Each man, woman, boy, will have to examine themselves in terms of what you believe or what you think you believe, and determine based on the experiences in life with other people as well as internally recognizing who you are. If you are a hypocrite or a person of integrity, they stem from your understanding of who you are. You're being open and honest with yourself. If I'm honest and open with myself, to some degree, I can do likewise with you. Now, we may not all agree, but honesty is what starts the conversation. In America, let's stop blaming and shaming one another and accept responsibility, individually and collectively, for what we do or don't do to make this country better. It's not all up to the politicians. As a matter of fact, very little is. Because of what I've seen in my last few years is the things that they do don't necessarily reflect what the public asks for. If I run for office and I promise to do thus and so, but I decide when I get in the office that I'm going to develop my own agenda based on my affiliation with a particular political party or pluralistic group, then I've deceived you. I have not been totally honest. And that's a reflection of not just my office, but who I am as a person, my character. Character does count more than you know.
I don't try and change the world, you know. I'm not crazy enough to think I can change the world like Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you can only change. You can change yourself, but you can't like we all have to change on a micro scale. You know, you can't like go out there and change other people. Yeah, I confronted a Nazi last weekend. I doubt I changed him. Wish I could have just killed him. No, the world would be a better place.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Less Nazis usually make things better.
Yeah.
There are people that disagree.
I think the biggest problem we have right now is a lot of us have adopted this notion that to truly be a sort of equal, fair society, we have to accept everyone's point of view and everyone's sort of opinion. And that's bullshit, because most people are idiots. Like, I don't need to know that the fucking Klansman in North Carolina doesn't like me. The fact is, like, that's a really dumb thing to believe, and that's a hurtful, horrible thing to believe. Sometimes opinions can't be justified. And so the idea that, oh, we're sort of upset about what someone is saying, we're sort of upset about what they're doing, but oh, we shouldn't do anything because otherwise, you know, that's gonna stop dialogue, and that's what's really gonna like bring this country down. It's like, no, the fact is that like if you allow these people to say and do whatever they want, they don't care that you're taking the higher ground. It emboldens them to just do it more. It emboldens them to actually be more public and more sort of open about it.
Again, we hear a lot of broad agreement from the people on their big issues facing the country. But what do they say about their hopes for the future?
I think it's like okay right now, the way it is, but it probably won't be that good in the future. So I don't know. Just stay like it is.
Well, I think that like in the future, because of Trump's presidency, everything falling apart, it'll make someone want to come up and make a difference, run for president, hoping to make America great again. I think that's because Trump says, make America great again. Like, when was America bad?
I think I'm at a really rare moment in our nation's history where, because of the media, which is not the enemy of the people, because of the ability of people who don't need to spend all of this time to acquire information, because of the courage of people to speak out, I think there's a coalescence ongoing of hope and reality. And I might be deluded. If so, I'm going to be very sad. But still very hopeful, because America is already great.
All right, well, what I wish for the future is that when we come upon problems, we'll work together to solve them, to overcome them, and to make this country a better place. I don't want to say make it great again. We're an amazing country. You know, this is a great culture. This is I mean, it's the land of opportunity still. But what I really want to see happen is people, you know, when they're faced with adversity, when they're faced with a problem, that they want to come together and work to solve it.
I think technology, it could lead to like great things. You know, the interconnected. It's like now that we're more connected than ever, and you know, all the information's really out there. You know, I think there is a certain level. Not interconnection is not for everybody. I don't think we should be shoving down democracy down people's throats who aren't ready for it. Often because our excuse for democracy is just an excuse for Americans to make money. It's really sad that the countries that are going to get hurt worst by the changing climate are the poorest countries, and the advanced world is just going to benefit from it, like Russia, Canada, Northern Europe.
So,
and there's some people, you know, reparations would be nice. They probably do. Not that that's ever going to happen, but
I hope that the world, we'll start with the world, I guess, has moved a little bit forward. Just enough, because more love, more equality, more justice, more opportunity, more education, more art, more theater, more music, and more subtlety of all of those different forms. I'd like to see even more of everything. I don't see why we wouldn't have much more. I mean, we just keep making and growing and splitting things off into their own things over and over and over again.
My perfect future would be like all electric cars, some way to like get rid of our trash. I mean, because our whole world is just, global warming is melting all the ice caps. So we don't really have that much left. I'm thinking like kind of like helping robots. Because I mean, we already have those in like some places, like Japan. I was reading an article about at a hotel, there are robots there to like greet you. Well, not necessarily robots, more like androids. I mean, I can see us doing like the same things. Because I mean, we can't just let robots take over everything. Because then there would be no place, nothing for people to do for a job. We're gonna still have mechanics. This is what happens when those robots or androids break down. Because I mean, there are jobs that we just can't have robots do. Like for example, I'm gonna just keep it simple, like making a sandwich.
It would be nice if we could, make space exploration a priority again. It just seems like our program's kind of stagnated with budgets drying up and things like that. We've kind of taken a backseat to that sort of thing. Development of clean energy, things like that. That's something that's kind of come ahead in the last few years. People still think about it in the old ways of being inefficient and expensive, but a lot of things have changed. So that's something that I think the government should help in being pushed so that it's more widely adopted, kind of breaking our dependence on fossil fuels. Even though I love cars.
There's going to be wars for oil, whether or not we're in them, and we're going to be in some for oil. Sooner or later, it's a finite resource, right? It's a finite resource that our entire world's built around. So when it starts to be real scarce, there's going to be lots of wars for oil. I just hope that we don't live to see those times, or the technology surpasses the need for oil, but I don't believe that's going to happen.
Technology, probably. I think technology is going to be the problem and the solution to many problems as we go forward. I think one of the biggest problems is going to be that it's, again, going to only go to the people who have money. So it's one of the main things that would be nice to have money for, so you can afford the nicest technology, because I think it's going to take us off a cliff that we can't predict where it's going to go in terms of virtual reality and what we can get to. Things will not look like this. I feel like our generation is not investing in the future. We don't have retirement accounts because we know that everything's just going to be different. It's going to be a whole different model. Once we break energy in terms of getting free energy, what you can do with solar panels on everything and not having to pay for electricity just starts to spiral.
Free energy, first of all. I mean, that's happening now, but that's everywhere. Everybody has free energy because everybody's like, oh, we figured this thing out, we're going to share it with everyone. Awesome. People have decided to stop breeding like crazy because there's no need for that. So they're like, yeah, we don't need to do that. So there's not a huge population. People live as they want to live. There are dense cities that people live in and that are beautiful and clean. And everybody does their thing. And it's trade, and there's no currency. And people live in the woods, and people are nomads. And we have respect for the land, and we respect animals, and we respect each other. And people
this petty squabbling and come together for one certain goal, you know, one idea. We're never gonna. The way things are going now, it seems like we're in a circle again. We're just rotating around. We're not going anywhere. It doesn't feel like. I just don't see us. All I can hope for is that somebody comes in, starts something new, technology or whatever. And sadly, I feel like in the end, it'll be something obvious like climate change that's going to bring everybody together and be like, oh shit, we all have to do this together. Oh, we get it, you know.
My goal for humanity's future, my dream, my wish, my hope is for us to evolve socially, emotionally, and spiritually to a place where we can live harmoniously with one another and with the earth or whatever environment that we happen to habitate.
The mere fact that we still exist today and we haven't wiped this whole system out and it hasn't fallen into the black hole of the ether gives me great trust and faith that we are going to continue to exist and manifest. So, based on that assumption, I can go ahead and look 5 or 10 years into the future with hope and trust and say that our species, the human species right now, has incredible power and potential to reach levels physically, intellectually, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, and on so many other levels, structurally as a society. We have the ability to attain heights that we've never had the potential or ability to attain before. Yes, there is a factor that wants to squander that or resist that, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen in addition to, alongside, or instead of.
Well, my dream of the future, I think, involves, a society where people are certainly engaged in keeping it running, that are doing the work of the day-to-day work to make sure that we have law and order and food and medicine and whatever and education, whatever people power is required for that. But I really I feel really strongly about people also being able to have ample time, and I can't say that I've decided what the ratios are, but more than whatever's left after a 40-hour work week, to tell stories, build culture, community, develop rituals, celebrate traditions, raise their children, take care of their elderly and their sick, get to know their neighbors, and I don't think that, I think right now, even under our dream president, we're very, 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 very far from that. That's going to take a paradigm shift to a certain extent, and certainly a big shift in politics and what we sort of imagine as the social contract. But I feel like we want to create sustainable communities where we don't have to depend on fossil fuels to bring bananas from South America.
If I could say something to somebody else, is set your surroundings and change your surroundings in a positive way, that what you're going to do is going to affect the people around you positively.
I am hopeful that good people step up and take action where they can. I'm hopeful that the world will be a better place in general.
The fact is, we're not perfect. None of us sort of always does the right thing. At least nobody I know, is sort of above reproach. And so being good doesn't necessarily mean that, we're all sort of holding hands and dancing around a campfire and singing lovely songs, but it just means that we are self-aware enough to understand that we have issues and built-in sort of prejudices and biases, and being able to sort of address those and say, these are the things that make me feel, that make us feel like we're further apart than we are together. And that's not to say it should end with just that sort of feeling, but that's the beginning of actually, working together, of actually making legitimate sort of quantifiable sort of change. Is if we don't feel like we can talk to each other, we're never gonna sort of be close enough together to actually do something in the real world.
The country as a whole, the United States, is going to have to endure some challenges, not just internally, but externally. Even in the crisis, some great ideas and some great efforts can occur. That's what I hope, and that's what I believe, because there is, in my estimate, a power higher than man, whose rule and reign supersedes our own, who at the same time influence the hearts and minds of a lot of people in various nations, to the point where they realize that they must show not only passion, but some compassion for the fellow man.
Jesus always taught the disciples a lot of things that even the church doesn't talk about. Like, love's the most important thing. But love is not that overwhelming, gushy feeling you get before you make love. Love is, in his words, putting yourself second in every situation and sacrificing yourself to let someone else accomplish what they need to or want to accomplish. In his case, he was talking about himself dying. But he constantly was talking about being second, being second, being second, being the servant, being the servant, being the servant. I think if we all approached life with that mentality, the future would take care of itself. The future would be, it would be pink rainbows and clouds and just unicorns and all that great stuff. Will it be that way? I have no idea. What I want really doesn't matter. It's just a matter of how I steer my course through it.
Perhaps some of these social movements and social changes a lot of people have been going for decades, they may come to fruition, even despite how it may look now with, Trump going after everything. Perhaps him being in is like the jolt a lot of people needed to okay, this is hard. I have to work for it. And maybe if that happens, hopefully that's when things will come by.
To me, the future is we get along and work together for the common good. That is our future. We put aside our differences, or at least we try to accept each other's differences in a kind and giving way, and work together to accomplish real world goals. I think helping each other succeed rather than pushing each other to failure. We don't have to step on each other in order to rise up. We can each give each other helping hands and lift the whole world up. Everything here is possible, but we have to put aside our differences, and we have to look at these infrastructure plans, start building bridges, start investing in clean energy, start growing food and using lands in a responsible way. We can solve all the world's problems, but we have to get organized and work together.
Well, in the end, I hope that it all brings us together and makes us reprioritize what's important. Like I said before, everyone wake up and realize celebrities are not the answer to all our problems, and we actually need to pay attention to the politics and actually make educated decisions when voting. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping. We'll kind of bring everyone together and realize, wow, we really messed up, and we need to do something about it and fix it.
Well, my rose-tinted view would be that people who, on both sides, whose intention is to create havoc and to just create unrest, that they would somehow realize that doesn't work. Well, although it does create havoc, but it doesn't work in terms of unifying our country and unifying our people. And that they would become more and more the minority, and the majority of Americans who are good, solid, upstanding citizens, that they would, that the values and the hopes and goals and dreams that they have would become more evident, so that everybody was working on those hopes and dreams, like for peace, for justice, for equality. And you know, we say that we're one nation under God, that we want liberty and justice for all, which we do, and I think every American wants that. But I think it's time for all of us to sit down and really think, what is my part in that? What do I need to do?
I don't want it to be like taken wrong or anything, but I kind of like would hope that the future would be kind of more like the past, but more open. Like,
what do you mean by that?
So politics not being the front runner of everybody's thought, like it's not what's the only thing on the news at night. Like, it's just happening to be there for us, but we can all just live our lives without having to constantly think about that.
I'd like to see a place where, I don't want to say that I want us to be able to go back in time, but I'd like us to find I'd like it where this idea of like political tribalism doesn't exist. I'd like to feel more neighborly. I'd like the news to not always be so bleak. I'd like to be able to say, I'd like to be able to see cultural progress again.
I think so much progress was made during Obama's time, and I was actually really hopeful because I've got a child, I've got a daughter. She's now a young adult. I was really hoping that her life would be better than mine, that she'd have a chance to have not $100,000 a student loan, that she'd have a chance to get through school and be able to buy a house and like do what she wants to do and have some sort of security that it's not going to be all crashing down on her someday.
So I'm just hoping that people will, interrupt the process of saying you can't, and will say yes we can. Not like the Obama yes we can, where we support that faithful leader, but where we support ourselves. Join the PTA, get involved in the school boards, start joining some of these committees, holding these elected officials accountable, especially the ones that we've been let down by. I hope there's a renewed interest in holding them accountable and asking them to identify clear goals of what they're going to do to keep us safe.
Of course, I do have hope for the future still, and I don't recall if I shared what I teach, but I am a kindergarten teacher, and so every day I think about the fact that the students that I have are 5, 6 years old. They'll graduate high school in about 11 or 12 years. And college after that, 15 or 16 years after. And I constantly think about what will the world look like when they are of age, when they are active citizens, when they are potentially the leaders. And so I do have hope because first of all, I'm trying to create a positive and helpful and worthwhile and fulfilling educational experience, at least creating a solid foundation for it.
I'd like to see a happier, people happy
people happy, children happy, youth happy, business people happy daily, that they're happy where they are in life. If they're happy where they are in their life, then they're going to have a future of happiness. But a lot of youth are not happy where they are. Well, if you're happy with yourself, then when you make decisions, you're happy with those decisions. You're happy with opinions. You don't have to ridicule because somebody has an opinion that isn't necessarily your opinion.
Helping children with cancer, finding a cure for cancer would be my hope for the future. Probably that more than anything. I would hope that keep on going back to live in harmony. I would hope to be healthy and happy, and my children be healthy and happy. That's my hope for the future.
It means bringing children up with the right way to be, the values, and the right way to act, the right way to be, certain things expected of them as a human being. The parents need to be more involved with the children. It's not just Trump. It's not Trump. It's the mothers and fathers why you have these shootings, because there's nobody watching these children. Nobody's bringing up these children. They're on their own. And the parents need to be parents again. And I know that everybody is, what one of the problems is the people out there working so hard just to make ends meet. It didn't used to be that way. Because the father would go out and the mother would stay with the children. And now that's out the window. And a lot of children don't feel loved.
I would like to see this younger generation coming in and becoming the majority. And it's something that I thought would happen in the last 20 years. I was just waiting for us to take over, and it is happening. It's just happening more slowly than we thought.
America has become so selfish, and it's also kind of this individualisticness that we have. It's all about me. I can do everything. I can get rich. But in our current system, where kids get out of college with $40,000 of student loans, and then they go to jobs where they're making less money than their parents did, that American dream cannot happen for the vast majority of people anymore. But because of our individualism, we think oh, well, if it's not happening for me, it's because of something I did right or did wrong, or if it is happening, it's because of something I did right. And people don't think about the system. And I think in my ideal world, the mentality would change and people would start to realize that we all do better when we all do better.
I want my children to get a good education. That's the most important thing to me for their future. I guess I want it to be a world where there is an American dream and it is attainable. And I don't think it's necessarily the American dream, whatever. I think it's always been have kids, get married, settle down, the whole nine. But whatever it is to you, whatever your dream is, I think they should be able to accomplish that and it not be unattainable. That's what I want for their future.
I think I would like us all to have a more tolerant future. I want to say more loving, but it's it's a lot to ask for people to just be loving.
The issue is, though, kids, younger people, actually most people, are so used to being spoon-fed everything that they really cannot even think for themselves, or they don't want to. Because when you think for yourselves, you have to take responsibility. When you think for yourself and you decide to act upon something, you have to take responsibility for this, even though most people don't want to do that. So therefore, it's easier for them to just go along with the flow.
Racism in America is alive and well, and I don't know how to tell you how to not be a racist, but I can say this: if you're a white person, it's not enough to be just not racist. You have to be anti-racist. You have to call out your bigoted white friends and not put up with that shit. You have to be an ally. And I don't know how to teach people how to do that, but one of the best ways to if you feel like you're a racist or you've been raised racist or you feel biased. It's okay. A lot of people are raised with this shit. You can't help it, but you can change it for your generation. Is to actually be friends with people who don't look like you. Actually be their friend. Don't just say like, use it for social credit, like actually be their friend.
Start with race. Race is no longer a thing. We're not talking about who's black, who's white, who's yellow, any of that stuff, because it won't matter anymore. There's no racial discussion. We're all just people. We're all living beings on the planet, and we look at every other living being like that.
I guess what I hope is that we can stop having this like segregation, right? Like in all these different levels, to see people have equal access to everything. Education, healthcare, for people to not be marginalized because of, their race. And I do want to say I'm not, insensitive to sexual orientation, but sometimes I get really like, it seems so 2018, like, oh, I want to be referred to as this. It's like, I get it, and that makes you feel more comfortable, but don't we have a bigger issue to deal with, like African American men being shot all the time? I was just thinking the other day, like, do you ever hear about white people being shot at like that? So my hope is that, like, I don't know, on a personal level, that I can be more empathetic and sympathetic to be providing things to other people. Like, and in my field, that's like helping them communicate on a basic level, but maybe it's helping them to read. It's helping parents to understand healthy ways to raise their children, to help them learn in the future. It's helping people access resources so they can become better at whatever it is they want. Maybe they just want to be a better mom. But, I feel like people get so, because of the way our society is, people get so wrapped up on just, basic survival. And I guess that my hope is that people can, unify and come together and stop making it be, if we can help each other and change the narrative to not be about me, me, me all the time, and us and we, I think that we can have a more positive society.
I think that a more equitable society that doesn't promote the kind of cutthroat attitude that 21st century America has come to expect of its citizens towards each other, both in the work and recreation and leisure time that we are allowed. We want to be the best at everything when we just should be as best as we could be to others instead of elevating ourselves and giving into our own egos. I would like to see a more grounded society in that, where there is a logic that people who are the caretakers of the earth, they should be treated as equitable individuals. They should have housing, they should have healthcare, they should have education, they should have everything they need and nothing to want.
Well, as far as for America and mankind's future, I think that that mankind's future, or humankind's future, should trump all of the different countries, because we're all in this together. And we're going to continually affect each other in that kind of a way. So I would hope that we would continue to evolve to understanding how great we have it here on this planet, and that we may continue to go for knowledge that enlightens us to who and what we are in our place in society.
We need everyone to participate, right? So that would be one thing. So yeah, whites vote in this country. They go and vote. They know if they don't do it, they're not gonna get majority vote. So they go vote. Latins don't vote. African Americans don't vote. But I mean, we demonstrated when we do, we win. I mean, it happened in Alabama. It happened in 2008. It happened in 2012. So there's got to be a process that everyone understands. No matter what group or percentage you're part of in this big country, your voice still can be heard if you participate. If you believe you count. Now, a lot of people get discouraged by that because they've seen the results of years of history. But again, that could change, and that has changed. So we just have to understand you have to do your part to make things work.
Turns out everyone seems to be thinking along very similar lines for the future. But what about how we could possibly get to their hoped-for future? Does the seeming agreement across the nation sustain itself?
Maybe first acknowledging that there is a problem. But I think people have to want it, but they have to know what it is they want. Maybe it's that they realize, we're going to have to come together. Maybe they're going to have to acknowledge that this wonderful, comfortable life they have takes some maintaining, and for it to go forward in the future, it's not always going to be the same, but we're going to have to work to keep it going. It might not be the same as what we have now, but it could be even better than what we have now.
Ultimately, things are going to work out, but we're going to have to fight people every step of the way. It'll have its own problems. We'll always create problems. We love to do that. Anything that life gets too comfortable for humans, we love to invent some problems for ourselves so that we can have something to care about. Because actually, that's my biggest worry with this eventual future, is that people will, if life becomes too easy, people will lack purpose, and that will be its own mental plague on the whole world, because it actually sucks more than it seems like it does to lack purpose. It seems like that would be a comfortable, relaxing life, but it doesn't go that way, I think, for people. We need to strive.
And it seems too obvious for me to say that what's keeping us from getting there would be the division, the people not agreeing. From everything I've ever heard ever since humans have existed, disagreements have existed with them.
It's possible if you look at it in terms of there are systems that are designed and put in place to keep us sort of feeling like we're not together, because politicians lie, corporations steal. If we're all sort of united, if we're all getting along, if we all realize what's happening and decide as a group to do something about it, those institutions crumble that day. So there's a lot of incentive to keep that going, to keep that sense of us against them sort of going, because it prevents people from actually doing what they should be doing and sort of getting together and really knocking these assholes on their ass.
That's why we had such prosperity in the 50s, was because the government was working to provide jobs for people. And I think the government was much more functional then. And I think the big problem right now is people don't trust the government, with good reason. The government is corrupt. The government is not looking out for our best interests. But instead of people being let's fix the government, people are let's, abandon the government. The problem is that we're living in a situation where a lot of people might have to work 2 jobs and are just trying to get by, and it's a lot to expect someone who's barely getting by to be okay, well, now I'm going to go home and read the news and really understand how to become politically active. People are exhausted.
I guess my question too is was Obama able to make strides towards what I just described as my future? That's kind of what I'm asking myself. Have I seen other presidents? And is that the ultimate, peace? Is it the president? I don't think it's the president. My thing is about the future is that what's happened to our government? So if Beep gets out, I'll just beep his name every time now. If he doesn't, first of all, who is going to be a Democratic nominee? You know what I mean? What? He can't stay there. He cannot fucking stay there. And that's another thing. Are these crazy people that support him gonna is this gonna be a thing now? Because if somebody Beep gets in or he stays, I really do think we're fucking doomed for a long time.
So the truth of the matter is, and this is very unpopular, But this is kind of the underlying understanding of culture as a whole, at least in America. Until the old white men that run everything at the top die out, and the theory and the understanding that they subscribe to and push, it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, Asian, Native American, it doesn't matter the skin color. It is the ideology that is ingrained and embedded in the people at the top that continues to filter down, and until they die off, we are where we are. Hate is taught.
It is.
There's got to be something else there. There's got to be yin and yang. There has to be. It just can't be all kittens and unicorn farts or whatever forever. And if you look at our history, we're heading in the right direction. Like, less people are getting raped, less people are getting murdered, more people are getting educated, more people can communicate with their grandparents, their uncles, and their aunts and stuff.
Well, then let's put it this way. Why is my idea not probable if somebody like Trump can get elected?
And that's what I said. It's
Anything,
obviously a probability.
Anything can happen. But I go by a lot of my gut feeling and things that I do pick up in the air. It sounds strange, but it's there. All you gotta do is listen. There's a change coming. And yes, it's going to upset the balance of a lot of people who are used to getting their way. People are tired of it. They're weary and they want things to be the way that it should be in a country that is supposed to be so free. Because there is not a lot of freedom right now. To me, Trump getting elected and still being president shows there is no underlying government controlling anybody. Because if there were, he would not be there. Nobody wants to see Bozo the Clown become president of the United States, but yet, what do we have?
Of course it's possible. Absolutely possible. We're talking in the realm of science here. Scientifically possible means it's physically possible. If you think a thing, how do you know it's impossible until you try it?
Well, I mean, it's certainly not gonna, it's gonna have to be a group effort, right? It may likely sort of emerge from the ashes of, a bigger, more traumatizing conflict. And that's, and I think we need to stop just, sort of, well, in 4 more years we'll do better, and well, lesser of two evils sort of reasoning, and start going like, what is the virus causing our national sickness? And maybe now is the time to finally look at that and to rally our national immune system, and drive it out once and for all. And then I think we do have to be dreaming about a better world, what we're fighting for, in order to keep our energy up and keep the fight going. And I think if we're just out there fighting to get rid of what we have, but we don't have any collective vision for what to replace it with, we don't all have to agree, but we should at least start to think about it.
Well, I think that it's going to be the way that we can win as a society, that we get a connection from one another. And people have opportunities, and I think they have the desire to connect one another. We are our species is willing to learn each and every day something new. And how we do that is by adapting and by learning from one another. That's how we grow. We're not going to be able to be better unless we learn from one another.
I think it'll be up to the people. First of all, it will be up to people like me. I vote. I know how I will vote. I know that hopefully individuals will really examine their conscience and start to think, is this the America we want? Is this the America that we have fought for since 1776 and prior to that? Can we really feel comfortable with ourselves and with our country if we show intolerance? I don't think so, and I hope not.
Things have been uncertain forever, right? So to think negatively or to think that tomorrow is going to be much worse than the day before is very short-sighted thinking. It's going to be bad, but it's going to get better. That's the eternal struggle, is good and bad, and you know, and things are going to suck one day and they're going to suck a little less the next day.
So I think it's kind of like we've got to overcome, we have to evolve far enough as Homo sapiens that we are first driven by the other, doing for the other than we are doing for ourselves. And that's going against basic nature of an animal. So that's going to take a long time, but we've gotten a long way from 5,000 years ago.
I have hope that the future won't be as bad as a lot of people I know it will say it be. I do. I have blind faith in that because people have been saying that, I think, since the beginning of time. I think this is the end, this is it. So, it is somewhat blind faith. But I think on a personal level it's reconcilable, but to open that to other people, I don't think it is. Because it's too private these days. Everybody's all to themselves.
I think that environment is an incredible factor on what we consider human nature. And the environment in which we all live today is not conducive to that kind of collective thinking. It is very individualistic in nature. I think if we could change our environment, which I think is possible, has been done across the world in areas, then we can have a higher respect for one another to want to act more communally and collectively towards a better future.
Humans are resilient.
Huh?
People are resilient. You can overcome almost everything. How? We need to get this asshole out of, we just need to get this administration out and start, burn it to the ground at this point and start from scratch. I don't know. It's something really radical has to be done to make some big changes. So I thought, well, Obama did make a ton of good changes and had a ton of hope when he got into office, and a lot of that hope was fulfilled. He had a big struggle and a big fight. Bernie's not the answer. I don't know who is. But there's a lot of good people in the Senate and in the Congress who are really fighting hard.
I am hopeful for the future because, I mean, humanity, we're kind of like cockroaches. We're pretty resilient. We stick around and, you know, we are like cockroaches. We're gross. We're really gross. But there's also something beautiful about us, too. And I think that that's where the evolution comes into play, because we all have something inside of us that is good, unless we're sociopathic.
Maybe there needs to be, we just need to level things out for a minute. Because my personal belief, you know, I think if we just sit for a second, and if we just are quiet for a minute, and we just listen for a minute, you know, we're going to hear, and we're going to feel, and we're going to see the basic, innate goodness that's really part of the human condition. And it's not all prejudice and hate and, you know, one against the other. That really, we're all looking for the same thing. We all want to be happy.
It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
We have to dwell on and focus on the things we have in common instead of the things that tear us apart. If we decide that what we want is a better future for our children and grandchildren, if we want education, for everyone, to further the common good, if we want safe drinking water for all of us, how can we not agree on this? There's so many things that we should be able to agree on. Well, we have to take care of people's needs first. People cannot reach out and help each other if they think that their personal lives are falling apart. I think that we have to bolster individuals and families and help them feel secure before we ask them to work for the common good.
I was thinking this to myself the other day, you know, it's very real. Not only is it realistic, it's simple. Well, just do it. Or stop doing shit, you know. Stop being a racist dickhead. Stop objectifying women. Pay people a wage, but that's intuitive on other people doing the right thing as well. We're talking about human fallibility here. That can be changed. All people have to do is just be nice, do the right thing. Like your parents say, just act right. You know, we're not talking about like bending the solar system to our will. This isn't. A lot of this isn't external. Even with the environment, you know, we can do something about that. We are now. It's just not the right thing. So it's not like this is shit that's happening to us. We're doing it. You know, we can do something about it. Yeah. But that would mean humanity collectively getting together and making decisions of like, okay, we're gonna do things differently. And, you know, maybe that's what politics is about. You know, popularity, getting just enough people together.
That's the issue, though. There's going to be a certain faction that no matter how hard they try to help them, they're not going to be helped. They want to stay right where they're at, what they're doing, and unfortunately, it's that kind of mentality that is making it harder on everybody else.
I don't know. I'd like to say that maybe not during, yours and my, generation, but maybe the generation, the younger generation, the Generation Z, or even, that we might be able to see, we might be able to attain a certain level of, I don't know, politeness and I want to say that there's good in humanity and that if we look at history on a macro scale, and you can see, 100 years ago this is where we were, 200 years ago this is where we were, and there is a movement that I think is progressing in a good direction, and I want to say that we learn from our mistakes and we progress towards something, and my hope is that maybe our children will be able to see where we are, learn from it, and then very slowly the culture will shift towards something that we can be happier with.
I think it's going to take, a change of the guard, as they say. It just seems like it's going to take the next generation of politicians and people who want to work in government to come in and kind of try to shake things up, they're more in tune to, the way technology works these days and new developments that have come about, socially, to where they'll be able to help the government implement those things. It just seems like as long as the older generation is still in political power, those things aren't priorities, or they don't fully understand how those things would work, or they don't know that those things can work.
I think
there is. I think that it starts small. I feel like people get so overwhelmed if they look at the meta and they think, I can't do anything about it. I think it's really important to look at your own community. Like, look at your neighbors. Do you know them? Do you care about them? Like, if you don't, why don't you? Like, why don't you know them? Why don't you care about them? You can't force anybody to be positive. You can't force anybody to act in their community. So they have to want to change. They want to have to make it a better world. And I feel like people do want to do that. They just need suggestions and ideas on how to do that. I don't think anybody wants to live in a world where they feel like it's crumbling.
I feel it needs to start at the bottom. You know, families in need, people in need. I think it starts from the bottom up. But I'm at the bottom. And I'm just constantly still trying to get to that next level. But there seems there's no way to get up to that next level as far as I try in the industry that I'm in.
What is the next level?
Some sort of educational program to try to get people like me up to the next level. As far as work, trying to get out of remedial work. You know, to get the hands-on training for other jobs, better jobs. That's other than slopping food on dishes for 16 hours a day and not making any money.
More human compassion, more respect for one another's values and morals and the way they feel about life, understanding each other's cultures. I think that would be a good start. And a lot of people are so involved in their own lives and working here and doing this and business transactions that sometimes everybody needs to stop and just think about the people around us, family and friends, and strangers. It could be a stranger on the street, a little something of kindness could help so many people, whether you're homeless or poor, or need a meal or whatever. A lot of people just walk by and don't care about anything but themselves. Slow down and think about what's around you and the blessings you have and this beautiful country and the trees and the ocean. People I don't think take time enough. I'm sure there are a lot of people that do. I know I do. My kids do. Time to, I guess the little thing would be smell the roses. Enjoy our country. It's a beautiful country.
Well, I think several things can do that, but some of them are only temporary. War, for one thing, can unite people and have them thinking more in the same vein, and they're united for a cause. They don't necessarily agree about everything, but they put their differences aside to work towards a common goal. But I think the other thing, as you know, as a woman of faith, is I think just a revival, because we know God changes people's hearts and minds. I mean, I think that would do it. That tends to be more lasting from what I understand. And I certainly think that many of the people, well, I don't think I could say that in a broad sweep, but many of the people I know who actually kind of live what they say they believe are people of faith. And so there's some proof, being in an academic and scientific background, we like proof, but there, certainly some proof that revival makes a big difference, and that having God have a central place in our lives and in our world makes a big difference.
I've come a long, long way, a mighty long way in my life, and it wasn't all due to my own individual effort, I had a lot of help. And oftentimes it wasn't even solicited. That's why I believe, and that's why I know it can happen. I don't sit around waiting on it. I invest in youth, I invest in homeless, I invest in the hungry, and I try to invest in other people. so that they can have the opportunity, should they seize it, to at least advance socially, economically, and otherwise, spiritually.
I think that it's a little cliche, I guess, but we need to treat each other like family. We need to treat each other like brothers and sisters, because our family, they do fucked up shit sometimes, but we forgive them and we make it work because you're family. And if we would just treat other people that way and give them the benefit of the doubt and have a conversation with them instead of just dismissing them and saying, well, I don't want to associate with you, I'm not going to follow you on Facebook, I'm not going to go call you when I'm in town because you don't have views that are the same as me, then that's not helping either of you. You need to share those ideas. There's, thoughts that I've had, opinions that I've had that were totally wrong. And it wasn't until someone told me about it and someone was open-minded enough to have that conversation that I realized that I was wrong. And so I feel like everyone can do that. It's hard to admit that you need that, but we all need to be kept in check.
For people to realize what they're doing to the ecosystem, our planet, with all these gases and pollution. It's because without our environment, we can't just eat metal, because we need our environment to grow food. I don't know exactly how we can get to every single person, but I know we can get to some people. Because, it's really not that hard to not pollute, to not destroy our entire ecosystem environment.
Art is our silver lining, because if we look at what happened in the 60s and if we look at what happened at the turn of the century in the early 1900s, the music, the literature, the paintings, the intellectual sharings, that's what brought us through it. That anthropology, that storytelling, it helps us define where we can go and where we've been.
Well, it's always, you never can tell, man. Really, and that's what makes it exciting in a lot of ways. We're kind of pushing for an idea, but that idea doesn't have all its parts. Unless you're really good at figuring out all of its parts, and you got to know everything about it. But I'm not so sure that us as human beings are built that way. We're built to kind of blindly go through it. We only have a limited part of sight anyway, and vision, and there's all this stuff constantly going on around us. So we're only seeing that small perspective anyway as we move forward in the universe. So who's to say what's just around the corner or what the next bend is? And I think that that's something that keeps it moving forward, is the infinite possibilities. It shows you the universe itself is truly infinite.
I don't think there is a blade of grass out of place in the universe or the multiverse right now. I think there are enough of us who have attained the consciousness and the ability to manifest that will carry us through. I think the torch has been lit long ago, and I think the torch is well carried with a very strong and powerful group of people. And even if they are in the numbers less than the majority, which I don't know that they are necessarily. I'm not saying that they are, but those few will carry us through, Willie.
The reason that I think most Americans don't have a plan for a grand future is that we live in the plan for the grand future. The whole United States is supposed to be this idea of we're all progressing together. Like the government, our president, the Congress, our senator, our governor, our state house reps, our mayor, those people are all there to plan our future for us. We are here to hold them accountable. But the reason I think a lot of people don't have the reason why you're like, this is all day to day, this is the stuff I manage, I think it's because we live in the grand plan, or supposedly, and that's, I think, why everybody's so shook up. So, what did we discover from our 3-year journey into the heart of America? It turns out Americans by and large still believe in the communal ideas of America, and the vast majority of Americans share similar hopes for the future. So it seems what we've learned is that the belief in these ideas and their common yearning for a happy ending is what makes Americans American. It's the tie that binds us all together. Though it may not look or feel like it right now, these commonalities form a bond that cut through the differences that we have amongst us as citizens of the United States. The fact that so many unconnected Americans from so many different walks of life share so many ideas, so many hopes for the future, lends itself to the notion that we just might be able to one day live, hopefully, ever after.